A palette full of color, we'll leave the truth uncovered, cause only lies are white. We use the words we write to shine a light on life. My light is lava like it's hot and burning bright. Now read, recall, record, recite. We covered every angle now.
Hello everybody, welcome back to And Cyn. I am Cynthia Dorsey.
I'm Veronique McCray.
And we're so excited that you are here with us in the room today. Today's playwright is the Lorraine Vivian Hansberry. Lorraine was born May 19th, 1930. She was the first African-American female author to have a play performed on Broadway. Miss Hansberry is the youngest of 4 children. She grew up on the south side of Chicago. Her mom was a real estate broker and a driving school teacher, and she also was a ward committee woman. So this explains a lot about who Lorraine became, because she definitely got into politics and became an advocate for the arts. Miss Hansberry went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she there became politically active with the Communist Party USA, and she was responsible for helping integrate a dorm while she was there. She then decided to move to New York City in 1950 to pursue her career as a writer in New York City. But before going to New York, she spent the summer in Mexico studying painting at the University of Guadalajara. So she had many, many gifts. When she got to New York, she took the ground running, joined the staff of the Black Journal Freedom newspaper, and that newspaper was published by Paul Robeson. In the same building as Freedom newspaper was the office of W.E.B. Du Bois and a bunch of other Black Pan-Africanists. As I read more about her, I don't really think she was closeted as people like to label her. She in fact had written in her personal notebooks about her attraction to women. She submitted her letters to the Daughters of Blightus. It's a San Francisco-based lesbian rights organization. And in these pieces, she talks a lot about, the alienation of the lesbian woman and also the oppression of the LGBTQIA+ community. So she did, in fact, speak out a lot about this through her writing. She used her art form to protest against things that she felt were not just. Miss Hansberry's success as a playwright is profound. She has won Tony Award for Best Play. She has won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award for Best Play, and when she won that award, she was the youngest American playwright and only the 5th woman to ever receive that award. Miss Hansberry also wrote 2 screenplays, one for Raisin in the Sun, which is the play we all know and we will be covering today. Columbia Pictures, in fact, rejected her first pitch of Raisin in the Sun screenplay. But then in the 60s, it got commissioned by NBC. She also had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and this was in 1963. And at the age of 34, succumbed to the disease on January 12th, 1965. Her commitment to civil rights the LGBTQIA plus rights lives on to this day. A lot of her works incorporated American stories, the Black American story. Many of her plays are award winning. Some of her other works, besides A Raisin in the Sun, are On Summer, The Drinking Gourd, What Use Are Flowers, The Arrival of Mr. Toadog, The Sign in Sidney Brustein's Window, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. We know that's by Lorraine Hansberry, but it's also a song by Nina Simone. And Les Blancs and Toussaint, based on the revolutionary Toussaint L'Ouverture. I think we would be remiss if we had a show talking about Black female playwrights and never discuss Lorraine Hansberry. She was a primary person in this movement of Black women liberating our voice through writing. So I'm so happy we are discussing her today.
And now more about the play that we're discussing today, A Raisin in the Sun. So the original title of Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun was The Crystal Stair, which is a line from Langston Hughes' A Dream Deferred. She first discovered his poem in 1951, and that was the start of her journey of penning what we know as A Raisin in the Sun. It is set in the South Side of Chicago in the 1950s, focusing on the Younger family. And the Younger family has recently come into a life insurance policy of about $10,000, I believe. And the discussion is we're looking at what is the Younger family going to do with this money. The play actually is loosely based off of a partial real life experience. So her parents moved to the Washington Park area in Chicago, which was an affluent neighborhood in about 1937, and they received vicious attacks and plots and ploys for their white neighbors to push them out of the neighborhood, so much so that it turned into a legal case, Hansberry versus Lee. And that case went on to actually establish a rule that whites were no longer allowed to dictate or push African Americans out of the neighborhoods that they move in. Now, unfortunately, we know that this still occurs in the state I'm currently in North Carolina. That issue has occurred as recently as 3 weeks ago in the Raleigh area. But her family experienced this firsthand back in 1937, and that experience, along with reading Langston Hughes' poem, kind of served as a catalyst for A Raisin in the Sun. So we see the Younger family come into this money based on the passing of Mr. Younger. And what we really focus on are the dreams of these family members. And as we start to look into their experience over the few weeks set in this play, we really explore those elements of what is a dream and what is a dream deferred. And as we go into that more, seeing the protagonist from Walter Lee and Mama's dreams of moving them into a better neighborhood and a nicer house that she shared with her husband who passed, to a daughter with higher dreams, not so tied to man and marriage, we see kind of a focus on what does it mean to have a dream and have a dream deferred. I don't know where to jump in. There's always so much richness in this play, which is why it's so popular, is because there's so much richness. And the other fact that I didn't say is that she wrote this at 29 years old. Okay. And also it took about a year for the producer, Philip Rose, to raise the funds because Broadway was, known as the Great White Way. So just like that difficulty that Cynthia mentioned about the film version being put up until it was picked up, the same difficulties occurred with this ultimately breaking barriers and making its way to Broadway. I don't know. Where do you want to jump in?
I don't know. This piece it's rightfully so. Maybe we could just talk about characters. Like, which character would you say you relate most to now as a dreamer? Because we both are dreamers. We're always talking about our dreams. As a dreamer, which character do you relate most to? And then which character frustrates you the most?
I think now in reading it again at the age that I am, I relate most to Beneatha, because she almost aspires for more than maybe what her personal worldview is. Like, she knows that she can be more, and there's something more than what maybe the standard is, because it was like, oh, well, you can settle down, the male suitor, and get married in that track. And she has a track of, she wants to continue and go to medical school. And some of her religious and faith beliefs don't match with her mother, who is more conservative and more traditionally religious. And so there's a conflict there. So I find myself relating to her because she's like, she wants to be beyond maybe what the societal structure and the religious structure says she should be. She wants more. And so I relate to that now, at my age. A character that frustrates me, probably Ruth. Because Ruth and Beneatha, I think, are kind of opposite or two sides to what you kind of could be in that setting, right? And I almost feel like sometimes she sacrifices herself for the marriage, hoping that, the love will rekindle hope, but kind of loses herself in that process, along with having Travis, her son. Like, I think she gets lost in it all. So that frustrates me, because even modern day, I think, especially for women, and we have such goals and dreams and ideas, we can get lost, or there's still this idea, especially in marriage, that a woman is supposed to sacrifice her dreams, and then her primary, concern and focus is taking care of child and pleasing husband. Right. And so that frustrates me, because I don't know if Ruth always has a voice per se, which could be a different take. Like, what are the inner thoughts of Ruth? And one of the scenes that made that stand out to me is the scene that we'll be focusing on for the cold read, because in the hush and the whisper of it, you kind of hear her, the subtext of talking to Beneatha, when Beneatha has this conflict with Mama, and she's like, you acted like a child. But she had sympathy, empathy. She really actually was kind of feeling. She was feeling what Beneatha was saying, but she could never say it herself. She would never say it herself. But actually, I feel like there's a part of Ruth that was rooting for Beneatha to go kind of break free and explore. There's that tug to her that says, no, well, you're supposed to be, well, he's a good man. He's rich, talking about Murchison. But I think there's a part of her that was rooting for her, like, man, you can do it, but you know what? You can't come in here acting like that, but secretly I got your back, girl. So I think for me, those are the two that I mean, you can get from all of them, but if I have to name two, that's what I would name off the cuff.
Yeah. I think Ruth was once Beneatha, and she lost that, right? Where Beneatha is probably the younger version of Ruth, and now Ruth is she still has her dreams, but they've now been altered because she is now caring for her family and working for her family.
Right.
So I love the audacity of Beneatha. I love how she is exploring who she is. One moment she's coming in the room and as in her African garb, and she's like, forget this Americanism, I'm African. So she has She has like almost a split personality, which all of us do. You know what I'm saying? When we walk into one room, we might speak and talk one way, but when we go into another room, we might speak and talk another way. And I feel like she's just trying to figure out who she is, but something that does not change. She wants to be a doctor. She's adamant about that. She's adamant about studying and being successful in that way. And I wholeheartedly respect that about and love how that character was written. I think Mama frustrates me. And I say this because I've noticed this even in my own family, like the mother is hands off of her grown children. And so she knows that Walter Lee is making these decisions, but she's adamant like he's the man now. Let him do what he's going to do. And I think that frustrates me because I was expecting her to step up in a way that didn't happen until like the latter half of the play. She just allowed things to happen and things to be said. She would stand up to Benita as the female child, but she often allowed Walter Lee to say and do certain things that she would not allow her female child. And I recognize that even today, like even in my family, you know, but I do know that her thinking around that is that Black men have it very hard in the world, and taking away their thought process and how they move in the world is devaluing them as men. It can be devaluing them as men. And I think she wanted to give him room to step up and be the man of the household. But I also feel like women, when women do that, they negate their power in it all, and not seeing men and women as equal. And I know the time in which this is written, you do have that patriarchal structure in families, including the Black family. It exists today, but as a woman and as I continue to grow and explore who I am, I'm recognizing that, yes, men need the room to be men and they need to step up and provide, but also women have a place in that. They have a voice in that. Women too have a responsibility to step up and say, wait, this is not a great choice to make. Right. We have lots of things to think about. I think our responsibility as women that often gets overlooked is to bring the wisdom to the conversation, because a lot of times people, men and women, are thinking about a myriad of things and trying to process and make their way through the world. And if you are a woman, which I felt Mama was, sitting on a ton of wisdom, then it's your responsibility to share that. So I think that's who I am now as a woman. And like interpreting that, I feel like people can interpret this play a billion different ways, but I do feel like I wanted her to step up in her motherly way still and invoke the wisdom that needed to be imparted on her family from all angles, from her daughters, Ruth and Benita, because Ruth is still her daughter-in-law, and definitely Walter Lee.
I definitely agree. I find Walter Lee's character like agonizingly irritating, only because he carries kind of the stereotypical patriarchal views that Mama continues to support. It's as if his manhood says that he knows what he's doing and he's not open to listening. So I think sometimes it's difficult for women to also navigate if they want to share or impart wisdom, because a lot of men will read that as if you're talking down to them or don't believe in them or criticizing them. And you're not criticizing. You're there to support and help impart wisdom and be able to see certain things that they may not see because they are juggling and wrestling with a lot of things. And Walter Lee seemed to put his desire and want and what he believed would work over everything else. He didn't have that ear to listen, even if he still ultimately made the decisions that he made in the play. He didn't have an openness to hear if Mama would have spoken. And I find that very frustrating, because you still see that a lot today. And in that balance of trying to support your brother or support your partner, support your friend who may be male, if there's not some way of an understanding of them knowing that that's not an attack. It's not trying to emasculate you. It's not a play on your intelligence. It's just that usually when you're outside of a situation, you can see something that the person may not be able to see who's in it. And as you said, Mama, with her years of wisdom, just life experience.
Yeah.
If she could have come with that mothering tone, because the approach, might have to be different, unfortunately. I don't necessarily like to coddle, but it's not like to berate you, but just as your mom, let me share this with you as your mom. But also, I don't like that. And we still find that today, those differences, like you said, between the men and the women, how we rear our boys and our girls. Like, boys will be boys, or let them such and such and such. But that leads to levels of toxicity that go into a whole other subject, and then meanwhile, it's almost like a girl is taught to stay in her place and do these things. You're thinking too big, or you're doing too much, or watch your mouth. And then the guy is like, you're free to do all that because we want you to learn. But then they carry that same mentality on later on to either workplaces or relationships or things. And then you have relationships where the woman might be afraid to speak up. And if she does speak up, then the man is thinking she's being smart mouth or she's out of place. You get what I'm saying? It causes these structures and these mentalities that pass on, because the play is set in 1950s. It's 2020, but you still see this all the time. You see these structures, and you see these struggles with dreams. You see these struggles within families of what they should do. And you see, because it's life, right? But he burned me up. What I loved about Joseph was him bringing something new to the picture. He brought, because I believe we need exposure, right? And I feel like a lot of people, they're either within their same zip code or within their same block, within their same state. So they only think life is what they're surrounded by, right? So if I grow up in Southeast DC on 37th and all I see is this, then I want to be the king of the block, you know what I'm saying? But that's all I know. I haven't been exposed to anything else. Or, when I first moved to DC, I worked on a missions program. They put me with a roommate, a young lady from Nebraska. She had never, ever been around Black people. She thought we were all prostitutes and drug dealers. And I shared a room with her for 3 months. And let's just say I had to be the voice of all Black people to break down, because her exposure was nothing but gangster movies on TV. She had never been around anything else outside of Nebraska, right? So sometimes we're limited by our exposure, but him coming in, introducing these new ideas, right? It gave Benita something else to explore and search. And sometimes, especially in Black families, we're afraid of that, especially when it comes to religion and Christianity, right? Anything that seems different from the version of American Christianity we've been taught, that's the devil, that's witchcraft, that's such and such, even things rooted in African spirituality, because we've been taught that. So what I loved about him is he was a partner, or he was a presence that believed in her ability to go for what she wanted, but also introduced her to new ideas and concepts that she could explore for herself. And I love that. We need more of that. We need more exposure to different things to be able to develop who it is we ultimately want to be, to have those ideas. You know, it's more of an open-mindedness, you know, and it doesn't mean that, oh, he introduces everything and she just changes it. Because like you said, she had her conservative moments. She had her moments where she was in her African garb, you know, but just that opportunity to explore and see what fits you instead of just taking what is automatically given to you. I think I like that about his character and how he, you know, tied into her.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that during this time, Africa and Africans were mentioned in a main stage production. That it, you know, we always are talking about the way in which Africa and Africans are represented in mainstream media, in our plays, in our novels, and I felt as if Miss Hansberry was liberating Africa in that moment. Joseph Assegai was an amazing person. He was kind. He was not anything stereotypical, you know. He was educated, you know. And so and just like you said, introducing African culture and customs to a family living in the South Side of Chicago. I thought that was an epic character to add in the mix of this play. You know, it's different. We are all different. We have different experiences. We come from different areas, whether it's the Caribbean, Africa, the United States, South America, Canada. Black people are vast. We have different, but coming together is what is important. Learning about our differences is what is important. And so it's nice to see this in a play that was written in the time in which it was written. Tell us about what you found out about this play being performed in 2020.
I should pull that up right now, but apparently an all Chinese version of the play is in production with an all Chinese cast.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah. No.
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
There are certain pieces that colorblind casting does not apply. The cultural references, the time period, what it's speaking to, the racial dimensions, because as we mentioned, the play is, you know, loosely based off a real life story. So one of the dreams being explored in this play is Mama purchasing the house and the conflict that they have trying to move into an all white neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm grateful that I didn't see them in blackface in any of the rehearsal pictures, but it's just not there's certain things that need that in order for the effectiveness of the story to be genuine and true, you can't change.
Right.
There's just like when they took away the aspects of what is my other show they're doing it to right now? West Side Story. And they took away those elements and took away key songs like I Feel Pretty, which is really like a testament to her feeling like regardless of what I'm surrounded by, I know that I'm great and I'll go for my dreams. And so then it just looks like dudes shooting up each other in the hood because they removed the aspect that's important to it. Just like everybody's in love with Mulan, and I haven't watched it, but Mulan had an all white crew and director telling a story about a Chinese. No, there's some things you can't touch. And while I know there's some opinions that are like, well, man, at least they're exploring our culture and our stories are getting heard. The best way to get that story heard is to bring in an all-Black cast and travel that story in, and then have a panel discussion, because we know there's a lot of tension between African Americans, Africans, and Chinese anyway, in that area within certain groups. So let's bridge it in a better way.
We come from so much rich culture from different places in the world that people are obsessed with us. They're obsessed with our art, and that they want to mimic it, they want to recreate it, and I understand why. I totally understand why. But when you take our story, our struggles, our oppression, and make light of it by acting it out, producing it, casting white, Asian, Pacific people into these roles that are authentically our stories, that is offensive. It is beyond offensive, and it needs to stop. You can admire a culture, you can even study a culture, but to mimic it and to adapt it as your own is disrespectful. I don't care if you are Asian. I don't care if you are Caucasian. I do not care. You should not be producing a Lorraine Hansberry play, specifically Raisin in the Sun, with an all Asian cast. You should not be doing that. You should not be producing West Side Story with an all Asian cast. That being an immigrant in America is a narrative you probably have. Write your own. Write your own play and perform and produce your own play. Come up with your own.
It's interesting because, like you said, so much love of our art, our music, our swag, our sensibility, our fashion, our tone of voice, our body shape. So much love of it, but no love of us. And that is what frustrates me, because it's like those expressions, you want our rhythm, but not our blues. You love our culture, but you hate us. This story came out the same week as Jessica Krug, the professor at George Washington, who pretended all these years to be Afro-Latino, writing books about it, teaching about it, living it. And she actually grew up in what? The Midwest? A white Jewish woman. So there's a world issue of cultural appropriation, and also just taking and stealing, right? There are Afro-Latino women who are more than qualified for that position because that's their actual lived experience, who didn't get it. She's not first. We had Rachel Dozier a few years ago. So, there's something about this taking, and that's why, like you said, it's not okay, because some stories you can't do like that. There are plays and things that you can do that with.
Right.
Okay? So just work from those bodies. But there are certain plays I can't go authentically play the role of someone in The Diary of Anne Frank.
Nor would you. I think that's the difference.
And I wouldn't, though, because it was disrespectful.
Yes, that's the difference. How dare anyone disrespect Jewish culture by taking that story and turning it into an Asian or a black or even a black story. Like, it's not our truth to tell. Allow the people who are descendants of these stories recreate these stories. That's not our truth. I think we would do the world justice if we tell our truth and our stories and use it to create art, not emulate others. I think it's important to be authentically ourselves. And if you don't like who you are, if you don't like your history, then that's your cross to bear. That's something that you have to work out internally. You don't feel like your community has as much swag as the black community, then come up with something. Come up with something else.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what else to add on that. Come up with something else.
Yeah.
And just, and I mean, I read comments. I shouldn't, but some people are like, oh, well, at least they're no, because that's the thing. We're so accepting of stuff as a culture. Quit being so damn passive. Some stuff you just need to put the hard no on.
Yeah.
There's some stuff you just need to put the hard no on. That's just a hard no. Now, we know in reality, we don't have the money, and producers have the money, and they're producing over there, and 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to go up.
I wish Lorraine Hansberry's estate would not allow that. Like, they shouldn't even have. You have to buy the rights. You got to buy the rights.
Right.
Whoever owns the rights to A Raisin in the Sun should not have allowed a Asian theater company to produce it, and that just goes to the respect of these publishing companies.
Yeah.
And with all of the diversity work, the equity work that these companies are now doing, at the core of it, you should understand that our stories are our own. And the fact that you're passing it off to other people to produce and to benefit off of it is racist.
And there'll probably be some people who will try to use Hamilton as a combatant to that. But it's not the same comparison.
No, you can't compare
it. Because a lot of people used to be like, oh, you can't do the Hamilton. He was a white man, such. First of all, Hamilton was an immigrant from the Caribbean. We're not going to talk about that, though, because that's not the analysis we're doing on the show today.
And that's also not something that people are ready to accept.
And it's not something they're ready to accept. Yes. But big props to the whole cast of Hamilton and to Lin Miranda Manuel, because you were brilliant and you are brilliant and gifted, and thank you for that. So no, those who are like, well, Hamilton, no. Not a valid argument. Not even in the same realm of discussion. Just to put that out there.
Well, you guys, we could probably go on and on about this topic because it's definitely an infuriating topic, and the more we delve into it, the more upset I get. But I want you to know we have an actress coming in who I would say embodies the work of Lorraine Hansberry, is definitely an advocate for justice in the LGBTQIA community, as Lorraine Hansberry was. So let's welcome her and get into her story and her career. We are here today with Tiffany Lyn Royster. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany.
Oh, man. Tiffany is such a great actress who commits to her roles, does a lot of sense memory from what I can tell in your work. Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey? How did you get started?
Well, I low-key have been performing all of my life. basically. Like 5th grade, I was pressed because, not even 5th grade, kindergarten, I was 5. I was pressed because I got to lead the line into our graduation ceremony. And like you had to be on key and on rhythm with that. And I was like top notch for being on key and on rhythm. And like you had to be like really joyous. And so they were like, Tiffany, you're going to do this. And so literally since I was little, I've been performing. I didn't really start fully getting into it professionally until my days at PGCC, Prince George's Community College. Shout out to them over there. When I was selected by Shirley Joe Finney and Ntozake Shange to workshop the AIDS piece that Ntozake Shange added to For Colored Girls. And I know we like to shorten that. It's real cute. But I didn't really fully get into it until then. And I was like, maybe I got something going on here. And like I had did little things before that. And then I just kind of kept going from there. I was able to do a production with Cyn and a production with Veronique. So like, you know, we were out here. I'm just doing the things that I love the most as far as like my journey is concerned. I feel like it's where I'm supposed to be.
So I had that opportunity, blessed to meet you when we all connected with Cyn, but just continuing to follow your journey and see you're not just an artist that is an actress, or like you're an expansive artist and you have lots of things going on, such as your production company. And I saw the launch of your YouTube channel. Can you tell us just more about all of the artistic endeavors that you are a part of, that you've launched, how we can watch it, things like that?
Yeah. So for my side, I'll get to the other stuff later. So for me, Rebel Heart Productions is a culmination of myself and my father and my grandmother, who are actually both deceased. They were both performers, especially my father. He performed at the Apollo. He was like DC famous, I guess you could say, because he was in a group with Genuine, and like there was this whole insurgence that happened in the 80s and the 90s. And so with that, my dad, you know, dabbled in writing as far as like songwriting is concerned. He wrote scripts for plays. He did screenwriting, and like I have all of that writing with me. So when I created Rebel Heart Productions, it was with honestly the both of them in mind, because my grandmother was a singer. So it was just kind of like, you know what, I have all of this information. They both have incredible stories to tell, not just with their lives, but also with the stuff that my father has written. And some of it you can see my grandmother in some of the writing. And I felt like it was necessary to start a company where I can start to put his work out there. It's also important to me that the company that I started encompass part of who I am. And, you know, I am the chair for Capital Pride, the parade chair for Capital Pride. You know, I am very strong, very prevalent in the LGBTQIA2S plus community. And so I have my own stories to tell. I have my own stories of being fat, Black, and queer, just trying to navigate this world, trying to navigate this country. And like, Rebel Heart Productions is a culmination of that. And then with Tales of Tiffany Lyn, honestly, it's fun and games. Honestly, I produced my very first variety show, which was incredible. Shout out to every single cast member who was a part of that. Shout out to my interpreters who helped me with that. But it was kind of like me stepping into a new part of what I'm supposed to be doing. And I've always felt like producing was my next step, because there are so many incredible performers, so many incredible artists. Some of what I do happen in nightlife. So I perform at drag shows, and I perform at different variety shows that happen all over DC and Maryland. And so for that, my very first show, that was like it. I was like, I'm doing this. This is happening. And so we came up with Tales of Tiffany Lyn, and I have song covers on there and also shows. So there's that. And then with Latido Productions, I am a featured singer there with their cabaret series, which we did the Kennedy Center Millennium Stage, which was probably one of the dopest experiences of my life. I never thought that I would be able to perform at the Kennedy Center. And then with Outstanding Voices of DC, which comes out of Shaw Tavern on Florida Avenue in Northwest. So there are things. There are things.
Yes, you are doing so much, especially for the community here in DC, the arts community, the LGBTQIA plus community. I really want to talk to you about that. You mentioned you gave yourself the title Fat, Black, and Queer. What do you feel as a fat, Black, and queer artist that the industry needs to do to ensure that your career can manifest itself?
That's so crazy because I was watching what was it, theater? I was watching something. It was a panel and I was watching it and it was lots of queer, Black artists who are in this area and who are part of this DC theater scene. And it was more so geared towards like racism and things like that. And so what I feel like has to happen is a lot of what they said, which is one, acknowledging first that people who look like me exist, acknowledging that there is work out there that exists for folks who are not straight size, for folks who are not cis or cishet, or who are not queer. Like there is work out there for us, and it's upon the scene and upon like theaters to really be able to find that work and not be scared of that work. I think a lot of times what happens is that you have folks who are in higher up positions saying, oh no, maybe, we shouldn't cover this right now. We'll come back to it later, da 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 da. And it's about those folks who are higher up actually listening. Pay attention. Like, I think that's the greatest thing that we could possibly do as a theater community is listen and act. And so being fat, Black, and queer, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking about like different moments where like I've gone out for roles and they've been like, oh yeah, no, we've picked someone else, you don't exactly have the look. And to me, it's just about breaking down barriers and not being scared. Like, people are just scared. And I'm trying not to curse because I want to say something and I'm not going to say it. But people are just simply scared of what they don't know. And I think as a community, it's only right that, one, we stand for each other. We have to. And I feel like we're starting to do that now. And not just Black folks standing for Black folks, not just cis folks standing for cis folks, but really everybody standing for each other to make sure that the people who are marginalized in the community are actually seen.
So kind of building on what you were just talking about with the people who are in higher up positions needing to listen to stories, have you encountered, just not outside of someone saying, oh, you may not have the physical look, but like with speaking with other people in the LGBTQIA plus community about roles that aren't written authentically? How do you feel about the stories that are out there? Do you feel like the characters are authentically representing, and how do you see Rebel Heart playing back into that for authentic stories to be shared?
So that's kind of touchy because a lot of what I've seen as far as major theater companies, they have yet to even tackle that. They have yet to even pull in stories that you wouldn't normally see on their stages. As far as smaller companies, I have seen them really tackle the stories and make them as authentic as possible. So something as simple as casting a trans person in a trans role.
Right.
Simple. It's the simplest thing that I've ever seen in my life. You see a trans person who's coming to audition, and yet you pick someone else for the role. Now, I get that there might be other things that play into that, but also there's some phenomenal talent in this area. And authenticity sometimes is brushed over because, oh, maybe, I don't know, just gonna throw this out there, maybe I don't like how that person did the role, but you can't speak for someone's experience. If you have someone who's coming into you who has this experience, who lives in this experience, I don't understand how, I just don't understand how you can't like breathe life into that. I've never ever understood that. But again, smaller production companies, I have seen honestly knock it out of the park as far as like authenticity is concerned. Casting where casting needs to happen. A lot of folks are doing blind casting, so you're starting to see more non-binary folks show up in smaller theaters, and you're starting to see again more trans folks that are starting to show up in theater, and it's honestly some of the most beautiful work that I've ever seen as far as like smaller theaters are concerned. With Rebel Heart, I just want to be able to tell the stories. I think that's where my heart lies the most. Tell the stories and make sure that whoever is on the production team has what they need. And I think that that is also important. You can't tell somebody's story authentically if the person doesn't have what they need. And that could be mentally, physically, emotionally. Like you can't make somebody believe something if the people who are working behind the scenes don't believe it too. So with Rebel Heart, that's really where I'm going with it. I'm actually looking at a script now, which is it's beautiful. The story of it is beautiful. I can't give away too much right now, but the story of it is extremely beautiful. And if I am able to, if the playwright so chooses me, I want to make sure that I do right by them, period, because the story itself is beautiful, and it's a story that you don't often get to see.
So it was a goal with us to talk to actresses over the next few episodes about mental health and wellness. And you have spoken out in private conversations and on your social media pages about anxiety and depression as an artist. Can you talk a little bit about how this impacts your work, your mental health, and some things that you are doing to be proactive to keep yourself well in what can be a very taxing industry?
There's so much that goes into that. That's like a loaded question because there's so much that like goes into that. So as far as like my journey with anxiety and depression, it started in my early 20s. I had just gotten out of a relationship, and I was walking through campus and I felt like agony. Like I couldn't understand why I felt like I couldn't walk. I couldn't understand why I felt like I couldn't talk. I couldn't understand why I had been crying for 3 days. Like I had no idea what was actually happening with me. And it wasn't until I decided to take advantage of the services that the college offers. And I went and I visited with one of our counselors. And I love her till this day, although she is not practicing anymore. I love her to this day because honestly, she changed my life. She really gave me the tools to be able to handle situations. And even when I couldn't handle the situations, there was at least something, even if it was like the teeniest thing, that I could take from what she's given me and try to make it work. So the thing about anxiety as a performer is that I mean, anxiety in general hits you at the craziest times. You're like, okay, what the actual F is happening right now? Like, you gotta be kidding me right now. Like, I remember one time I was going into the audition room and like my heart just stopped. And I was like, oh, nah, we not doing this. Not today. So a lot of what I do is really, I try to center myself. What's something that you can hear, something that you can touch, something that you can see, and really working on that within myself when it comes to my anxiety, because it is crippling. It's extremely crippling. And then when it's not crippling, it's when I am overactive. And so when I'm overactive, it requires me to take a minute to meditate, to basically just breathe. And I know that for some folks, they'll be like, girl, no, what? No, literally breathing and just trying to keep focus on my breath and something that is active, which is my breath, is what I do. As far as like meditation, I have my crystals. So I make sure that like I am holding them in my hand, making sure that I am manifesting what I need in that moment. Just trying to hold on to what I call my sanity, because when it comes to anxiety, that thing will have you thinking that you are the craziest person in the world, and that's not the truth. You're not. You're just having a moment, take a minute, and breathe. I also write, so I have a journal. I've been keeping journals since I was 12. So I didn't understand how much having a journal would help me in this. Just being able to write down my feelings, even when like I can't articulate what is actually going on with me. And then if I can, I try to sleep and drink a lot of water. I think sometimes folks don't understand the power of rest, and being able to have that moment to yourself. So literally like stopping, blocking everything. Like I'll turn my phone off, or like at least leave it on mute or something, and rest, because it is important. Our bodies cannot operate and function without it. And then, like I said, water, just water. Water, heals everything. It heals everything, heals the world, honestly. So yeah. As far as depression is concerned, situational depression is very prevalent in me. And I realize that happens when there are traumatic experiences, or experiences that are that catch me off guard. So in the passing of relatives, in the passing of even folks that I don't even know, everything that's happening in the world right now, it's situational depression that is more prevalent in me. And then dealing with that, honestly, I just let it happen. I have to go through the motions to get better, and to feel better. And again, that means trying to stay away from my phone and not going down the rabbit hole and trying to figure out what's going on in the world. So like more recently, I had to, put my phone to the side because of Dion K out in Southeast, and not go down the rabbit hole of, the play-by-play of everything that is happening. So second by second, refreshing the page. What's happening? What are people saying now? Trying to find the news stories, trying to just understand and figure it out. Like I've noticed that I have to take a minute to breathe. And my partner is incredible when it comes to helping me with those things as well. She has started to, or not even just started, but she's noticed different changes in me when that happens. And so having her around has been really dope, because I don't think that partners before her have paid that much attention to know that it's not me trying to lash out, or it's not me trying to be crazy and a B word to her. It's literally my anxiety and I need a moment. It's literally my depression and I need a moment. So shout out to Babe. Hi, love you.
You kind of answered the next question that I had in mind, and I'm just like, honestly, sincerely appreciative of you sharing it, because you just saying those things like sometimes rest, or, you know, giving ourselves permission to feel it so that you can process it, or my big theme, because it still seems like you can encounter in certain circles of our communities still there being like the no sign to counseling or therapy. And you know, so just being able for you as an artist to share that journey. I was unaware of your anxiety and depression to a certain extent when you did the suicide journals with me. So in my mind, as you were talking, I'm like, oh my God, did that, you know, because I know even directing it for me, I had personal triggers, right? So just you sharing that, I'm like, I just want to say thank you. And I'm sincerely appreciative, because I think, you know, the more that we discuss it, the more that we talk about it, people can say, oh, okay, that happens to me too. Oh, all right. So, all right, it's not just me, because sometimes, you know, you feel real isolated. Oh, breathe. Oh, it's okay to disconnect for a minute. Oh, it's all right to feel this. So I'm just sincerely appreciative of you, you know, just sharing some of the things that you have done or continue to do in that process. So you kind of answered the question that I had in mind when it, you know, comes to that. But how has the pandemic and COVID-19, in conjunction with everything going on along with our community as Black people, how are there any additional things to what you've already said that you've been trying to do to kind of keep your peace, or, you know, keep anxiety down, things such as that?
Yeah. So I've been in here cleaning, y'all. I've been cleaning like a mug, okay? When I tell you that I have been cleaning and organizing, and it's not even just like my bedroom, it's been my bathroom, it's been my kitchen, it's been the pantry, the cabinets. Like, I'm literally in here organizing like a mug. And like, that just, it brings me peace. It brings me a sense of calm. It brings me a sense of normalcy. But also, now that I have the time to do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna clear my space. And I think that's honestly one of the most normal things that anybody could do during this time. Like, we've been in the house for months, which feels like longer than that, but it's been what, 7 months? Because I think, yeah, about 7 months. So it's,
yeah.
Right? It's like, what?
Yeah.
So like, being in the house for that time, like, I'm just like, what can I do around here to make things better? Because, like, you know, all gigs got canceled, so anything that I had lined up through, I think it was October, got canceled, like, right off the bat. And I was like, well, dang, well, that sucks. Okay, what do I do now? And like, trying to navigate like the virtual space, as far as like performing is concerned, has been interesting. But it's been fun to actually kind of learn and honestly go into some skills that I forgot that I even had. So with outside of organizing, I started to pick up on like my sound person skills again, and like how to do live streaming shows with different types of equipment and things like that. So I actually just got a new piece of equipment that I'm going to play with today, because I'm like, I want to play. It's going to be great. But like, I'm teaching myself skills that I've had previously because of college, that I haven't used in years. I'm starting to teach myself those things again. So being able to learn again has actually been kind of fun. I ain't gonna lie. Stressful. But in the day and age of like YouTubes and finding tutorials and things like that, being able to learn again has been really, really, really great. And then to what you were saying earlier, The show, The Suicide Journals, was a really dope show. And there were moments where I did break down, but nobody knew. I had to, being in the realm of like being a professional, I felt like it wasn't necessarily for y'all to know, to add on, to your plate of things that are happening. But I also am grateful because of the camaraderie that we did have during that show. So being able to have y'all made it easier for me to be like, all right, Tiff, you got this. You got this. No worries. You got this. You're fine. You're going to be okay. You're going to get through this. I know one night, though, I was like just a blubbery mess. And I was like, oh, shit. The line didn't come out. The line didn't even come out. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. We're moving on. Next scene. It's fine.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I was like, something, when you're out there and you're looking like, something, and you might not know what to call it or name it, or you're like, she's gone deeper somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It might be the one on camera. I remember that, because I was like, she has gone deeper somewhere. And sometimes when you were talking about how you talk about now, and sometimes that's where I'm like, I'm glad there's intimacy coordinators coming up and more things, because as I'm trying to learn, like you were saying, making a safe space mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so when tackling works that deal with our stories and our lives, what more, learning more what to do to make that almost safe space so that you can explore, you can feel. If you do go somewhere, you don't feel, it's not a place of violation, but a place of, healing, or like you said, camaraderie. So,
yeah. And like that, I think that when it comes to, because a lot of us are dealing with trauma, period. And we have dealt with things. Some of us have dealt with some of it, some of us have not. And I think the biggest thing as far as like theater is concerned is making sure that folks understand that it's a safe space. So it's like, you can say that it's a safe space all day, but people have to feel it. If they don't feel like they can be open and be expressive in a way that will allow them to get to the character, or get themselves to the character while dealing with their own trauma and their own issues, then you're not going to get what you need from that person. So yeah, I implore theaters to really hone into that, and to like really take that and use that and be intentional with it. Because a lot of theaters can say, yeah, we're going to do this and it's going to be great, but not actually putting the action behind it and still perpetrating harmful behavior is how you get to places where we are now, where we're having these panels about racism, sexism, misogyny, people not feeling safe because of whatever mental illnesses that they have. We got to do better. We got to do better. And it's not necessarily, again, the smaller theaters, but it's some of the bigger theaters. Like I love when Timmy Dio, who I am absolutely in love with, they just won for Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girls play. They just won a Helen Hayes for that. Mm-hmm. And the joy that Timmy Dio has, and the appreciation that they carry in their acceptance speech about their cast, because it is a cast of Black folks, the joy and appreciation that they carry for Roundhouse Theater, because that's where they performed it, that they carry for Roundhouse Theater, and thanking them for handling them with care, basically. And I think a lot of folks can benefit from being handled with care in this industry. And that's something that we don't often see. So the fact that Timmy Dio was able to express that and have that experience, even with that cast, with that theater, that crew, I feel like that is incredible. And folks should take note of that, because I feel like we're all, when we create, we're all looking for that. We're not just trying to be looking crazy on the stage. We're not just trying to be stagnant on the stage. No, we want to be able to have that love and to have that emotion, to have that joy for what we do and for the projects that we work on and for the people that we work with. So creating for Roundhouse to create a space like that for them, I think is incredible. It's completely incredible. Also, congratulations, Timmy Dio. I actually worked with Timmy Dio at Keegan Theater for Alex in Wonderland. So I'm really excited for them. It's the joy I only hope and wish that with my company that I can bring to folks. And like, shout out to both of y'all with your companies, also bringing that to folks, making sure that people are feeling okay, checking in, like giving us those moments to just be. That's the only way that I know how to put it, to just be. Like Cyn always says, take a moment. I'll be like, okay, thank you. Oh my God. Thank you. Like those moments that like the both of you have given to me as an actress has been incredible. But also that is Black folks taking care of Black folks. And so how do we expand and get that into other spaces? So I think that's the question for the world. How do we expand and get that into other places? So
Actually, Veronique and I covered Schoolgirls, and I told her that I saw that Roundhouse production. I took my goddaughter, who was 9 at the time. She was on the edge of her seat. It was a wonderful show, and you can tell, you can always tell when an ensemble is connected on a deeper level, not just a surface level, because of the way the production goes. And so you're absolutely right. You could sense the care in the production. So I'm so happy to hear that they had that experience at a white theater. You know what I'm saying? So that's awesome. Can you tell us what you do when you are getting ready to audition? You go into the room and they're like, hey, Tiffany, here's a cold read. How do you handle that? Okay, so I want people to understand that like cold reads are in some cases some of the most nerve-wracking things that actors, actresses, people in the world can go through. Because you're just now getting this script, like you walk in and you're like signing in, and you're like, they're like, okay, here's your sides. And you're like, oh, I prepared a monologue. You told me, no, we're going to have you read for X, Y, and Z. And you're like, oh, okay. All right. So for me, it's more so I got to find a quiet space. My mind goes 1,000 miles a minute. So I'm really big on like going to the bathroom or like finding a corner somewhere in the venue. Of course, letting the folks know I'm going to go, find X, Y, and Z. Is there a time you need me back or whatever? So I generally go find a quiet space, and I breathe. I have to tell myself, it's okay. You are a performer. This is something that you are used to. This is something that, is necessary and relevant for you to get to where you are trying to get to. So a lot of affirmation, breathing, and then reading. So I take my time and I just try to read over as much of it as I can. Because, there's generally a period where, like, you get maybe 10 minutes and they're like, all right, are you ready? 10, 15 minutes, depending on what's going on. And then if there is someone else in the room who also needs to go over it, I try to, get to that person too. And I'm like, hey, would you like to run this with me? Because, yeah, we in this together. So, and then honestly, just
giving it all I got. Like, people, when you're getting casted, they want to see you as the character. So in that 2.5 seconds that, or what feels like 2.5 seconds that you are reading through this and then you go into that room, you got to become that character real quick, real fast. And, you know, interpretation is always subjective because folks want what they want in some instances. And I guess that goes back to looking a certain kind of way. If they can see the character in you, then they're real good about saying, you know what, all right, I can change this, or we can change what this person looks like, or we can make the adjustment. So like just doing a cold read is, for me, is just about breathing and just really affirming myself and saying, you're here for a reason, baby girl, you here. So yeah.
Well, we're going to take you through a cold read today. You will be reading for Benita. Veronique will read for Ruth, and I will read for Mama.
Okay, I'm with it.
So whenever you are ready, you guys, we can start.
Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water real quick because she dry. Gotta do that too before cold read. Hydrate, y'all. Hydrate. I don't flint. I experiment with different forms of expression.
Like riding a horse.
People have to express themselves one way or another.
What is it you want to express?
Me! Don't worry. I don't expect you to understand.
Who you going out with tomorrow night?
George Murchison again.
Oh, you getting a little sweet on him?
You ask me, this child ain't sweet on nobody but herself. Express herself.
Oh, I like George all right, Mama. I mean, I like him enough to go out with him and stuff, but...
What does and stuff mean?
Mind your own business.
Stop picking at her now, Ruth. What does it mean?
Oh, I just mean I couldn't ever really be serious about George. He's so shallow.
Shallow? What do you mean he's shallow? He's rich.
Hush, Ruth.
I know he's rich. He knows he's rich too.
Well, what other qualities a man got to have to satisfy you, little girl?
You wouldn't even begin to understand. Anybody who married Walter could not possibly understand.
What kind of way is that to talk about your brother?
Brother is a flip. Let's face it.
What's a flip?
She's saying he's crazy.
Not crazy. Brother isn't really crazy yet. He's an elaborate neurotic.
Hush your mouth.
As for George, well, George looks good. He's got a beautiful car and he takes me to nice places. And as my sister-in-law says, he is probably the richest boy I will ever get to know. And I even like him sometimes. But if the youngers are sitting around waiting to see if their little Benny is going to tie up the family with the Murchisons, they are wasting their time.
You mean you wouldn't marry George Murchison if he asked you someday? That pretty rich thing? Honey, I knew you was odd.
No, I would not marry him if all I felt for him was what I feel now. Besides, George's family wouldn't really like it.
Why not?
Oh, Mama, the Murchisons are honest to God, real live, rich, colored people. And the only people in the world who are more snobbish than rich white people are rich colored people. I thought everybody knew that. I've met Miss Murchison. She's a scene.
You must not dislike people because they well off, honey.
Why not? It makes just as much sense as disliking people because they are poor, and lots of people do that.
Well, she'll get over some of this.
Get over it. What are you talking about, Ruth? Listen, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm not worried about who I'm going to marry yet, if I ever get married.
If?
If?
Now, Beanie.
Oh, I probably will. But first, I'm going to be a doctor. And George, for one, still thinks that's pretty funny. I couldn't be bothered with that. I am going to be a doctor. And everybody around here better understand that.
Course you're going to be a doctor, honey. God willing.
God hasn't got a thing to do with it.
Benita, that just wasn't necessary.
Well, neither is God. I get sick of hearing about God.
Benita!
I mean it. I'm just tired of hearing about God all the time. What has he got to do with anything? Does he pay tuition?
You about to get your fresh little jaw slapped.
That's just what she needs, all right.
Why? Why can't I say what I want to say around here like everybody else?
It don't sound nice for a young girl to say things like that. You wasn't brought up that way. Me and your father went to trouble to get you and your brother to church every Sunday.
Mama, you don't understand. It's all a matter of ideas, and God is just one idea I don't accept. It's not important. I am not going out and being immoral or commit crimes because I don't believe in God. I don't even think about it. It's just that I get tired of him getting credit for all the things the human race achieves through its own stubborn effort. There simply is no blasted God. There's only man. And it is he who makes miracles.
Now you say after me. In my mother's house, there is still God. In my mother's house, there is still God.
In my mother's house, there is still God.
There are just some ideas we ain't gonna have in this house. Not as long as I'm head of this family.
Yes, ma'am.
You think you're a woman, Benny, but you're still a little girl. What you did was childish. So you got treated like a child.
I see. I also see that everybody thinks it's all right for mama to be a tyrant. But all the tyranny in the world will never put a God in the heavens.
And scene.
Y'all better act.
Oh, I got caught up listening to y'all. Missed the line. I was like, sorry, y'all. I was like, oh yeah, I love watching. I love listening.
How do you feel, Tiff?
Honestly, like this, Ooh, this scene it. Ooh, I have no words. I feel good. I feel good. Of course, like when you do a cold read, you go back and you're like, oh shoot, I should have said the line this kind of way. And maybe it would have like made more sense if I said it that kind of way. But it's like, even still, like, oof, just Lorraine, child, just be writing. Just be writing. It's incredible.
I often wonder about Lorraine Hansberry being a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, and at a time where it was not accepted to love who you want to love. There was no Supreme Court ruling to get married, and she lived with that. Is there any advice you would give to young actresses, playwrights, Black women who are struggling with this reality that loving who you are choosing to love though laws have passed, it is still a risk. And it's still evident that trans men and women can be murdered, and you could be accosted just by holding your hand walking down the street with the one you love. Is there any word of advice for those artists struggling with that reality?
I think the biggest thing is to be kind to yourself. So often we tear our own selves down because the outside world is doing that to us. And find solace and find a place where you feel like you truly can be yourself. Because there's nothing worse than being out in the world and not having that, but being with yourself and not having that. Some of us don't have the luxury of having incredibly supportive people around us, and taking care of yourself, your mind, your physical, for some of us is all that we have. And so just the advice for that is to be mindful of yourself and to be kind to yourself and generous with whatever it is that you need to do to make yourself feel okay. And there is community out there. There are places that folks can go, places that can be something as simple as a chat room or a group in our day and age on social media. I mean, of course, back then, you had to look for the signs. Look for the signs, and you'll get to a place where you can be accepted. But just take care of yourself. That's the biggest thing.
Did you have anything else, Veronique?
No, I just want to say again, I'm sincerely appreciative, very honored to continue to learn more about what you're doing, more about how you're making an impact, more about how you're expanding on your gifts. And always a pleasure to hear you read or act or sing. And I am honestly looking forward to all that you're going to do and the impact that you're not only going to make, in the DMV area, but your gift goes way beyond the borders of that. And I am excited about where that gift is going to take you. I believe that it's going to take you farther than you have even realized, because the sincerity of what you desire to do. And I'm excited to watch it. So.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and may the best engulf your spirit because you're bringing the best to the work. So we love you so much, Tiff.
I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me. Like, I'm so excited. I was so excited when I got the email. I was like, yes, come on, NC, let's go. We finna do it. I'm really excited for y'all and y'all's journeys as well. So thank y'all so much, though. Thank y'all for having me on the show.
Nice. Camera, roll. Answer.